Welcome to the vote.je question session with the St John Connétable candidate, Andy Gian. Pleased to meet you. Thank you for coming in today, and please do get your questions in at home. You've got the Q&A box on the screen, so get your questions in there now. It's time to answer them, isn't it? Not long to go before the elections. We will be giving Andy 1 minute to answer each question. And we are quite strict on timing, and please keep your questions fair, and obviously we will be choosing as many questions as we can, particularly questions relating to the parish, but obviously there are also island issues as well which people might want to ask you. And I have to say, of course, there is the option of the don't vote for neither of the above option, but you are a single candidate otherwise in St John. Okay, I'm going to start off by kicking off then with you and saying, how will you represent parishioners and make yourself available to them should you be re-elected?
Well, if I'm lucky enough to be re-elected, I'll carry on doing more of the same of what I have done. I have been doing fortnightly updates online. After the parish assemblies, I've offered question and answer sessions. Every Wednesday I have 2 hours between 5 and 7 where parishioners can come and join me. So I'll be trying to do more of the same and listening as much as I can.
Is there anything that you feel you weren't able to achieve in your last Connétable session that you would like to carry on and do for the next time?
Well, I only had 13 months, but we've got a number of initiatives started, be that road safety panel, be that the land that we got rezoned for the bridging through the Bridging Island plan. So there's a number of initiatives that we're starting, a memorial garden that we want to get going. So I look forward to being able to actually deliver some of those things over the next 4 years, shorter than that, hopefully. But yeah, there's lots to do. There's plenty to do within St John.
And you mentioned roads there. One of the issues that crops up quite frequently in pretty much most of the parishes is the issue of speeding. Is there anything that you feel you can do to alleviate that in St John?
Well, I can tell you what I have done, and that is recruited 8 new members to the Honorary Police since I was elected, and I'm delighted to say I've got 11 volunteers on the waiting list for our Honorary Police. We are just waiting for 2 new devices, smiley cameras, to come down so we can have more data collected. And we have worked with both the Honorary Police and the State of Jersey Police. When people have fed in us information to us to tell us they're speeding at Montmoreau at 10 p.m. on a Friday, we forward that information onto the State of Jersey Police, and I think they've had some quite good success actually. It's still an issue, but I think we have made progress.
Okay, and staying with roads, Jenny's asked, what are your views on traffic calming measures outside the parish hall and on the approach to St John's Village?
Well, there's a 2-page article in the parish magazine this month, and we need a crossing outside the parish hall. We've been talking about it for over 20 years. We're going to be doing some work in the summer with designs. We're going to go to consultation in the autumn, and hopefully in 2023 we'll actually deliver a crossing outside the parish hall and a number of other areas in and around the village to make it easier, for example, to get to the supermarket and for our older people to get to the sheltered housing.
Okay, thank you. So please, people at home who are just joining us now, you have your chance to ask the Connétable candidate for St John, Andy Gian, what you would like to know about the next term of office. And one of the issues which has frequently come up, of course, in island-wide, which everybody's been asking about, is housing. You know, young people having to leave the island, they simply can't afford to get on the housing ladder. What are your views as with regards to your parish with St John? What do you feel you can do, and also to protect green fields as well?
Well, it's a real big challenge, and it's one area that gave me sleepless nights. So a field at Zion was rezoned for 40 homes, and I can honestly say I had sleepless nights over that. Ultimately, we need more houses, not just for the young, but also we have a challenge with our more senior citizens who are looking to downsize. St John is quite fortunate. We've got a committee rural, an elected body of parishioners who have looked at the island plan, looked at what's needed, and I was happy to take 3 proposals forward with their support. So we need to make sure that we retain equity in these properties going forward. We're looking to sell some of the right-sized properties and use the funds from that to buy equity in existing family homes so that we can help the senior citizens and also some young families. We've constantly got to make sure that we've got people coming into the parish to revitalise all the time. The school has got to be vibrant as well.
Okay, and yeah, talking of schools, obviously facilities, do you think that the community facilities within the parish are sufficient, or would you like to see, or do you feel that there are areas that are lacking and things that you'd like to achieve?
Well, I'll probably be a bit biased because I've been a director at the Recreation Centre for a number of years, and we currently operate 28 different clubs or sports there. We also host the kart club and the motocross, and we're currently looking at ways of further enhancing the Recreation Centre. I think across the island we've got a lot of facilities in schools that are untapped, and we need to look at how do we get those buildings, grounds, and the same for the arts and the theatres. We need to utilise that. We need a centralised booking system where we can actually get those buildings working harder for the community.
Okay, and obviously with your role, if you were to be elected within the state, would you seek to have any kind of office apart from being Connétable?
Well, I wrote to the Electoral Commission in 2012 when we were looking at changing the way that the state was formed. And I don't believe that constables should be ministers. And I put that in my report to the Electoral Commission in 2012, and I still believe that is the case. I was asked by a lot of people to stand as deputy, but I've nailed my colours to the mast. I think St John needs some stability at this time, and I hope to be their constable. The one job that I would like, and I'm going to throw my hat into the ring, is to be chair of the committee of Connétable. That normally goes to one of the senior members of that committee, but I think we've got to modernise, and I would love the opportunity to actually lead that group.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on the changes to the electoral system? Obviously, there's been a lot of comments from people on the doorsteps that they're not happy with losing the island-wide mandate. Where do you stand on that one?
Well, I think it's taken us a long time to get to where we've got to. Let's not forget we had a referendum in St John. More people voted for option B than A and C combined. So when I was asked, when I was in the States and we were looking at implementing this change, it was fairly easy for me to recognise the referendum result and embrace that. I think we should be looking at 12 constables, 36 island-wide members, and I'm sure a proposition will come to that way within pretty short order.
Okay, thank you. And just a reminder to everybody at home, do get your questions in. There's a Q&A box on your screen which you can put your questions into there. One of the other hot potato topics, of course, which everybody's talking about, is the hospital. Where do you stand with that? Do you think that that's the right site? Do you support that site? How do you see that going forward if you were to be elected in the next term?
I was on the scrutiny panel. We're spending far too much money. The business case was very poor. I don't think we can look at new sites. You know, people are talking about Warwick Farms and Saviours, People's Park. In my opinion, forget it. We've got Overdale and we've got Gloucester Street. I would put the non-acute services at Overdale, the acute services at Gloucester Street. I believe it would be quicker. I believe it would be cheaper. I believe it would be better for the environment. And importantly, it would offer the island some resilience. So I think we should be having another look at making a decision within 6 months, probably 4 months, and making sure we get much better value for money. We've wasted so much money, and I'll say that again, we've wasted so much money, it's embarrassing. We've got to get on, but we need a solution that the island can afford and that is sustainable.
Okay, thank you. And of course, the other issue is the cost of living. You know, there's a lot of people who are extremely concerned about the coming months with that and price rises. Do you see any kind of role for the parish in helping to alleviate that issue?
I think it's pretty tricky for the parishes to do that. So once the welfare system went to the centre, then I think the ability for the parishes to do much was taken away. You know, we help people where we can. We've got a number of charitable organisations where we can help people. I think we should have spent a lot more money on the freight review. We have only spent £75,000 with the JCRA. That hasn't touched the sides. I think we need to look at our freight. We need to look at France because that would be much cheaper to ship goods in, would give us competition. So I think there's a lot we can do. And I would support the removal of GST from food. I think it's immoral to charge GST on food and putting people into a benefit system that they don't need to be. So I would absolutely support the removal of GST from food.
Yes, I was going to ask you that question. And one of the issues you talked about there was food, and obviously there's food security, and we're seeing stories of our farmers who are basically saying that they're pulling out of growing veg, etc. Is there anything that you feel you can do to support farmers and agriculture within your parish?
Well, we've seen the number of farmers dwindle over the years. When I was a youngster, I lived on a farm. There were hundreds of herds of cattle, and now there are just tens of herds of cattle. The world has changed. We haven't supported the agricultural industry financially as well as perhaps we could have done. We've introduced a lot of bureaucracy into that area and other areas, which perhaps is not all necessary. But if you look at how much the Isle of Man give, other islands give, how much is given in Europe and in the UK, we don't give anywhere near as much of that to our farmers. And we've got to look at what do we grow on the island. We grow an awful lot of potatoes that we export, and those fields often lie dormant for months between crops. And I think we've got to look at, there are some really good small farms that are working, and I think we've got to do a little bit more and encourage those businesses.
Okay, thank you. And is there anything, I mean, small businesses are obviously the lifeblood of the island. Is there anything more you feel you could do, or you would certainly support within government to support small businesses, for example?
Well, certainly. I spent 3 years as chairman of Jersey Business, so I'm very familiar with business and the challenges of doing business, and I've run businesses as well. So I think we've got to look at the bureaucracy that we create. I think we've got to look at making things simpler. For example, Jersey Business is based in the Parade, Digital Jersey's here in Grenville Street. Why aren't they in the same building? Why aren't we maximising the efficiencies from the arm's length organisations working more closely together? But we do support businesses fairly well. We've got some great bodies such as the Chamber of Commerce, the IOD, etc., the Hospitality Association. We need to look how we can support those and listen to what they're telling us, listen to what they say.
Okay. Now, you have been Connétable for a period of time already, but for those who may perhaps not have met you or come across you, what do you feel you can bring to the role if they were to elect you for another term?
Well, I think I'm quite fortunate as much as I had quite an extensive amount of experience in the municipality. I did 8 years as a procurator, for example, so I understood before I was elected how the administration of the parish worked. I've got a lot of commercial experience. I'm a fellow of the Institute of Directors, fellow of the Chartered Management Institute, chartered fellow of the Institute of Logistics and Transport. So I've got a lot of professional skills, my municipality skills, and I've got 12 months of experience of being in the States. I haven't been quiet. I've asked almost 60 written questions in my short time. I think that I'm approachable, I'm hardworking, and I would urge people to come out and vote next Wednesday.
And what would you say your leadership style is? Because obviously, with the new, you're going to have to work with deputies, you have to work with parish officials, and obviously within the state. How would you sort of work together with people?
Well, I think leadership is a key thing. It's something I've been involved in for many, many years. And leadership styles need to evolve and change depending on the circumstance. I mentioned earlier that I had a 5 till 7 session on a Wednesday evening. I'd like to invite each of the deputies to one of those sessions. So if you wanted to talk to somebody about the economy, and we had a deputy that was involved in the economy, you'd come on that week. There needs to be far more collaboration within the states. The hospital debate was a good example where people voted against the scrutiny amendment because of who bought the scrutiny amendment, and that's ridiculous. We should be making decisions based on what's best for the island and islanders. So I hope, if I had one wish for the next states, it would be to see far more collaboration.
And one of the big issues for anybody who's elected into the states is going to be the environment, and obviously the government set quite high targets with the environment. Yeah. How do you think that those targets are realistic, or do you think they're not ambitious enough?
I think they're about right. I was pleased in 2016 to win a national award for Green Fleet when I was at Jersey Post, introduced electric bikes, vans, etc. In St John's, I've set up a climate group, the 6th parish to set up a climate group. And island-wide, I've got the parishes, 9 of the 12 parishes working together now, so we can learn from each other. Hopefully after the election we can get all of the 12 parishes. That's where 2 members of the community come together. Sometimes it's the constable and one other, sometimes it's 2 non-elected people. So we've got to do more. I was delighted to support the £20 for the buses. If we can teach youngsters to become bus riders today, they'll become bus riders of the future. When the states sit, I generally get the bus, except for Wednesdays. I get the 10 to 8 in and the 10 to 6 out, and it's a fantastic service. I think Liberty Bus are doing a great job over here.
And what about, are you happy that you have got enough facilities for cyclists and for walkers within your parish? Because obviously roads are a big issue.
Well, I mentioned earlier the road safety panel. That is looking at getting cyclists and walkers in and around the village in the first case. And I also mentioned the Island Climate Group, and the Island Climate Group has agreed its aims and objectives. And the first piece of work that that group is doing is looking to connect the existing green lanes and try to encourage those parishes without green lanes to come to the party, so we can actually make it easier for cyclists. Alternative Transport Week on the 16th of May was good. We had assisted rides, and sometimes it's just giving people confidence. I taught over 150 school children their cycling proficiency at St John's School over 5 or 6 years, and I think we've got to do more to get people on the bike. We need to encourage people to work together, to appreciate walkers, cyclists, horse riders and vehicle drivers, and we've all got to get on to make it safer.
Okay, and final question is if you're re-elected, what would be the first 3 things that you would do when you got back into office?
I think get plans for the memorial garden. I think that's an absolute priority. Make sure the road safety panel is progressing. And I just think keep going as I have been doing. And I would encourage people to come out on the 22nd of June to vote, whichever parish they live in. And I hope that St John's can get the highest turnout in the polls and we get people talking about St John's for the right reasons.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for people listening at home with your questions. And thank you to Andy for joining us. There is still time to vote. You've got until midday tomorrow to not vote, but to register to vote, I should say. And you will be voting, hopefully. And pre-poll is also open in town, but you can get all the information off the vote.ja website. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.